The Millionaire and the Male Beggar, a timeless tale of compassion. It was the kind of night that buzzed with secrets. The city's richest billionaire, Ethan Pierce, was throwing the most dazzling party of the season. Crystal chandeliers dripping with light, champagne flowing like rivers. And in the middle of it all, hidden in plain sight, was a figure no one expected. Not in a tuxedo, not with a gold watch, but with ragged clothes and eyes sharp as broken glass. A beggar, a man no one noticed until the moment he said something that made the room go ice cold. Sarah stood in the shadowed corner, breathing uneven, a knot twisting tight in her chest. Her hands trembled under the delicate silk of her disguise. Tonight, she wasn't the woman who'd been crushed beneath Ethan's fists and lies. She was someone else, someone fierce, watching closely as the evening worsened. The drills of laughter and clinking glasses sounded almost like gunfire in her mind. Ethan's newest jewel, the new G. They sliced through the party air like knives in slow motion. 100 curious eyes glanced towards Sarah whenever she moved, sensing the storm barely contained beneath her calm. There was talk, rumors. The ex's mysterious friend, a stranger nobody quite knew, hovered like a shadow. Dark eyes that flicked across the crowd, calculating, unreadable. Sarah caught that glance once, and it felt like icy fingers running down her spine. Something about that person stirred old fears and new doubts. Who was he? Why did Ethan trust him? And what did this stranger know about Sarah? About her past? About the cracks Ethan never saw? The air thickened with tension. A laugh exploded from somewhere. The room spun dizzyingly. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears as memories clawed their way up. Painted faces, broken nights, screams swallowed in silence. But beneath that misery, a flame flickered, a ruthless determination. Tonight wasn't just a show, it was a reckoning. The laughter, the glimmer of jewels, the silky steps of the rival by Ethan's side, all of it, a test. And Sarah? She was ready. Or at least she thought she was. Her gaze locked across the room, catching Ethan's cold eyes. The past was about to explode in this glittering cage. The question hovered like smoke. Would she crumble beneath the weight? Or would she rise, raw and undeniable? And that stranger? His presence whispered of secrets waiting to surface. Promises that could shatter everything Sarah thought she knew about herself. The moment was closing in. The countdown had begun. Would she let rage take the wheel? Or could she find the stubborn strength to choose her own path, even if it hurt more? The party sparkled around her, glamour masking danger, smiles hiding knives. And somewhere, just out of sight, answers buried deep. Something huge was about to break. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. The moment was closing in. The countdown had begun. Would she let rage take the wheel? Or could she find the stubborn strength to choose her own path, even if it hurt more? Yet just as the tension thickened like fog, something interrupted the rhythm of the night. A loud crash echoed through the ballroom. Glass shattered, laughter cut off in an instant. All heads turned, eyes wide with shock. A panel of the grand window had been broken. Laughter morphed into gasps. The crowd parted. A figure leapt through the shattered glass like a ghost. Instinctively, Sarah's heart raced. Who was this? The man who'd burst into the glittering chaos was covered in soot, his clothes torn and caked with dirt. A beggar? No, the beggar. The one hiding in plain sight. His eyes were wild, darting in every direction like a trapped animal. "Help me!" he shouted, voice cracking. "You don't know what's coming. Ethan, it's all a lie." A ripple of confusion swept through the crowd. Was this part of the entertainment? Ethan's expression quickly hardened. His amusement vanished. What could this man possibly know? "Get him out! Get him out!" Sarah whispered, panic creeping in. She could see the change, deepening shadows in Ethan's smile, the shift in his stance. But the beggar stood firm, hands raised, eyes locked onto Ethan's. "You can't hide it, not anymore!" The whispers turned into frantic murmurs. The partygoers, once glamorous, now looked like prey. Ethan's new girlfriend, still radiating allure, recoiled. "Security!" she cried, her voice sharp with fear. "What are you talking about?" Ethan said, his cool demeanor slipping. "You're confusing everyone." "I won't be quiet," the beggar shouted, raw and filled with desperation. "You think this makes you untouchable? I know you, Ethan. I know what you did." The air shifted. Gasps spread like wildfire. Sarah felt the icy fingers clutching her heart. Memories rushed back. Shadows of darkness wrapped around her mind. She stepped closer. She needed to hear this. What did he know? "Your secrets," the beggar continued, his voice now a brittle whisper. "The man you betrayed, he's alive, and he's coming for you." The room froze. Time stopped. Everyone was staring, mouths agape, eyes darting between the beggar and Ethan. Sarah's pulse thumped loudly in her ears. Betrayal echoed in her thoughts. Who could this man possibly be talking about? Ethan's smirk quivered, the facade cracking. The crowd clutched their drinks tightly, breaths held. The tension was unbearable. Then, with the wild eyes of a cornered animal, the beggar turned and bolted towards the exit, the crowd parting like waves before him. No one moved. It was as if they were all tethered by the weight of the revelation. "Stop him!" shouted Ethan, fury etched on his face. But it felt like they were all rooted in place, fascinated and horrified. And then, just as the beggar reached the door, the lights flickered ominously. A sound like thunder rolled outside. An explosion? Or was it a metaphor for everything about to change? The walls seemed to tremble as gasps filled the air. Sarah's heart raced with conflicting emotions, terror, curiosity, and something else. Guilt? She was trapped, wondering if she should run after the beggar or stay and face Ethan. Because now everything had shifted. Secrets were no longer buried. And she found herself teetering on the brink of a truth that threatened to unravel all she thought she knew about her life, her heart, and the man who held her captive. Would she follow the beggar into the chaos? Or would she stay and face the storm that Ethan had created? The choice loomed ahead, heavy and dangerous. There was no more hiding, no more pretending. Everything was on the line. The crowd gasped in shock, but Sarah couldn't hear them. Her heart thudded, not just with fear, but with an urgent question. Who was this beggar, and what did he mean by secrets? The atmosphere felt electric, alive with danger. But then, just as the tremors of confusion echoed through the ballroom, a low rumble shook the floor beneath them. People looked at each other, uncertainty painting their faces. It was like something dark was brewing, a storm ready to burst. "Get him back!" Ethan shouted, fists clenched. But there was something different about his voice now, an edge of panic that sent chills racing down her spine. The beggar dashed toward the exit, and for a brief moment, every eye in the room followed him, captivated. But as he reached the door, A blinding flash lit up the sky outside. An explosion reverberated through the walls, shaking crystal chandeliers overhead, scattering glasses, and sending champagne splashing everywhere. A deafening roar drowned the voices, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. "Get down!" someone screamed, pushing Sarah, making her stumble. She hit the floor, heart racing, adrenaline surging. Chaos erupted around H. Screams filled the air, drowning everything else. And then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward, a silhouette against the blinding light pouring in from the broken window. Sarah squinted, trying to make sense of it through the haze of confusion. It was another man, tall, imposing, with dark hair slicked back. He wore a suit that seemed to absorb the light. "So this is where you've been hiding, Ethan," he said, voice smooth like silk, yet laced with venom. Ethan's face paled, the bravado slipping away. What are you doing here?" The tension shifted, like the air before a storm, thick and electric. The newcomer moved with a predator's grace, weaving through the chaos, eyes locked on Ethan. "You thought you could escape, after what you did?" The crowd's murmurs turned to whispers, then gasps. Shockwaves rippled through them, fear and curiosity battling for dominance. Who was this man? The beggar, forgotten in the turmoil, looked back, his eyes wide, as if he recognized this stranger. "He's the one," he shouted, desperation flooding his voice. "He's part of it." "What do you mean?" Sarah's own words slipped out, fueled by a confusing mix of dread and hope. The stranger turned toward her, and she felt those dark eyes pierce right through her. "You should ask the man you love. What's the true price of greed?" he spat, fingers curling as if around a fragile thread. "Ethan?" Sarah whispered, confusion swirling. This was not the man she thought she knew. But before she could process this new reality, the beggar charged again, urgency in his eyes. "You must listen. Your lives depend on it." But the stranger laughed, a chilling sound that echoed around the ballroom. "You think he'll save you? He's been playing a game way too long, and the rules are about to change." Everything felt like a ticking bomb, ready to explode. Sarah's heart raced. Who could she trust in this twisted web? Then, in a swift motion, the stranger pulled a small device from his pocket. The room fell into quiet expectancy as he pointed it toward Ethan. Was it a weapon? A trigger for disaster? "I know you're responsible," he said, voice low but fierce. "And you'll pay for your betrayal, Ethan." A collective gasp echoed in the room, eyes darting in shock. "What are you talking about?" Ethan's composure shattered. And that's when it hit her, a realization so shocking it made her blood run cold. The beggar, the secrets, the destruction, it all intertwined. The true nature of Ethan was crumbling right before her eyes. "Ethan, what is he saying?" she demanded, her voice shaking, pressing for answers. But the look on his face spoke volumes. Betrayal, desperation, fear. Before Ethan could open his mouth to respond, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into shadows. A haunting silence consumed them. And then came the crack. A vibrant streak of light shot through the silence, blinding everyone for a split second. What would it reveal? What was hidden in the darkness? In that moment, the entire world tilted on its axis, and nothing would ever be the same again. The room was thick with confusion, but the blinding flash momentarily stilled everything. Time hung like a heavy mist, thick with unanswered questions. Then, without warning, the lights went out completely, plunging the ballroom into darkness. A collective gasp echoed, voices rising in panic. What's happening? Is it a fire? Fear clawed at Sarah's chest, the confusion swirling around her like smoke. She felt her heart beat wildly, each thud matching the frantic whispers of the crowd. What was going on? Could this night get any worse? Suddenly, another flash lit up the space, illuminating faces frozen in shock. Then the darkness returned as quickly as it had come. Dread settled in the pit of her stomach. "Get back," she heard someone yell, the chaos pressing against her. Her mind raced, thoughts colliding. Ethan's panicked face, the beggar's desperation, the stranger threatening everything. The world felt unsteady, slipping through her fingers like sand. And then it happened. An explosion. The sound hit them with a force that tossed Sarah backwards, her breath knocked out of her. Crystals fell from the chandelier, raining down in glimmers of shattered dreams. The crowd screamed, scrambling for the exits, their once pristine outfits covered in debris and ash. Unsteady, Sarah pushed herself up, fear giving her strength. The air thickened with smoke, and she coughed, trying to regain her bearings. All she could see was chaos. Then, the figure emerged again, the stranger, now framed by flickering lights. He stepped closer, drawing attention despite the pandemonium around them. "Ethan," he said, voice low but carrying over the din, "you thought you could walk away?" With that, Ethan's face twisted, a mixture of anger and fear. "What are you talking about?" "This isn't the time." But the stranger ignored him, gaze steady on the crowd. "Did you think betrayal wouldn't find you?" he sneered, and suddenly, the truth of his words sliced through the tension. That look in his eyes, like piercing daggers, set Sarah on edge. Then, just as he was about to say more, the lights flickered once again, illuminating the beggar standing in the corner, eyes wide with shock and realization. "You don't understand," he shouted. "There's more to this than you think." Anger rippled through Sarah. "What do you mean?" But the beggar's gaze shifted to the stranger, recognition dawning. You're him." The room held its breath. The stranger froze, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "You shouldn't be here," he said, almost to himself, and for a moment he seemed unsteady. The beggar pressed on, voice shaking with urgency. "You think you're the one leading this. You're just a pawn. The real game is far bigger." "What are you talking about?" Ethan snapped. But uncertainty settled in his eyes, darkening the cruel mask he wore. Then a deep rumble filled the air, more than just the aftermath of chaos. With one last flicker, the lights cracked back on, revealing something that sucked the air from Sarah's lungs. The wall behind them shifted, revealing a hidden door. It slid open with a low groan, and from within stepped a figure shrouded in shadow, a silhouette carved from darkness. "Enough," it said, voice smooth but chilling. "You are all playing a game much bigger than you can imagine." Sarah's heart dropped. Who was this? Was it a friend? A foe? The stranger's composure shattered, eyes widening in terror. The beggar's face paled, and even Ethan faltered, bravado evaporating. "What game?" Sarah demanded, stepping forward, heart racing. But the figure only smiled, lips curling. "The game of truth and power, and you're all in deeper than you realize." As silence blanketed the room, Sarah felt the weight of those words press heavily against her. Everything tilted, and she was no longer sure of anything. Who could she trust now? And in that moment, with the weight of newfound truths threatening to unravel all she held dear, she found herself spiraling into the unknown, left to wonder what would come next. The figure shrouded in shadow stepped forward, the air thick with tension, and Sarah's instincts screamed at her to run. She could feel Ethan's presence beside her shifting, his bravado peeling away like paint in the sun. "Who are you?" he growled, voice low but gravelly, lined with a fear that didn't suit him. The stranger smiled, a dangerous twist of his lips, the kind that sent shivers up Sarah's spine. "You know me well, Ethan, but you thought you could erase me." A bead of sweat trekked down Sarah's temple as she scanned the room. The crowd was frozen, eyes flicking between this new arrival and Ethan. The tension grew heavy, suffocating like thick smoke clouding the night. Ethan began, but the stranger cut him off with a wave of his hand. "Let's not play games. You've done enough of that already." He turned his gaze on Sarah, and her heart dropped. "You might want to listen closely. This is your only chance." "What's happening?" Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. The shadowy figure took a step closer, his eyes gleaming as he leaned in, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "You're tangled in a web of lies, Sarah. Ethan didn't just lie to you. He murdered someone. You're part of a bigger story than you can imagine." Gasps erupted from the crowd, a wave of unmistakable shock. Sarah's heart raced, her breath hitching in her throat. "What do you mean? Who did he—" "Your father," the stranger interrupted, the words hitting her like a punch. "You see, that's the secret worth keeping. Ethan didn't just betray you, he betrayed your family. And now, it's time for the truth." "Stop. This isn't—" "No," Ethan roared, pure panic scraping against the edges of his usually smooth facade. But the stranger pressed on, undeterred, as if the truth was a tidal wave that would drown them all. "The man you loved," he continued, eyes locked on Sarah's. "The man who promised you forever. He took away your father's life to protect his own empire. The past he wanted to hide is now unraveling right here, right now." Dread washed over her. It felt like breath was being squeezed from her lungs. She looked to Ethan, searching for any hint of truth in his eyes, but all she saw was desperation. "Is this true?" Her voice trembled, caught between disbelief and a rising sense of betrayal. Before he could respond, the beggar shouted, "Don't trust him, he's just twisting the knives." But the stranger laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that cut through the chaos. "You should have stayed hidden, beggar. Your time's almost up too." With a flick of his wrist, the shadows began to shift again. Dark figures emerged from the hidden door, moving with purpose. The crowd gasped, panic rippling like a fast-moving wave. "Get down!" someone yelled as a loud noise erupted, the crack of gunfire. Time froze. Sarah's heart raced as chaos erupted. People scrambled, screams filled the air, and she felt a cold grip of fear tightening around her. The beggar stumbled, eyes wide, as the shadows pressed in, revealing armed men, faces hidden behind masks. "No, you can't!" he shouted, but it was too late. Ethan dove to shield Sarah, but the crowd surged, panic-driven. She ducked and twisted, adrenaline screaming through her veins. Her mind raced. All the pieces were falling apart, everything she thought she knew crumbling like ash. But then, through the chaos, a familiar sound emerged, not the shouts or the cries, but a ringing laugh. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she spun around to face the laughter. The stranger had disappeared, but the voice lingered. "Did you really think the game was over?" It echoed through the ballroom like a sinister melody, with every pulse of confusion and chaos. One staggering thought emerged from the mess. How deep did Ethan's betrayal run? As the shadows closed in on them, Sarah understood. This night was only the beginning, and she stood at the edge of a truth that could tear everything apart. Would she have the strength to confront it? Did she even want to know? The moment hung heavy in the air, and all Sarah could think was that the storm had only just begun. The room was thick with confusion, but the blinding flash momentarily stilled everything. Time hung like a heavy mist. Then, without warning, the lights went out completely, plunging the ballroom into darkness. A collective gasp echoed as fear clawed at Sarah's chest. What was happening? Could this night get any worse? Suddenly, another flash lit up the space, illuminating faces frozen in shock. Then, the darkness returned as quickly as it had come. Dread settled in the pit of her stomach. Each pulse of confusion and chaos drowned her thoughts. Ethan, the beggar, even the shadowy stranger, they were all dancing on the edge of a cliff, and she was caught in the middle. And then it happened. Another explosion. The sound hit them with a force that tossed Sarah backwards. Her breath knocked out of her. Crystals fell from the chandelier, raining down in glimmers of shattered dreams. The crowd screamed, scrambling for the exits, their once pristine outfits covered in debris and ash. Unsteady, Sarah pushed herself up, fear mixing with adrenaline. The air thickened with smoke. She coughed, trying to regain control. All she could see was chaos. Then the figure emerged again, the stranger framed by flickering lights, stepping closer, drawing attention even amidst the pandemonium. "Ethan," he said, voice low but carrying over the noise. "You thought you could escape?" With that, Ethan's face twisted, a mixture of anger and fear. "What are you talking about? This isn't the time." The stranger ignored him, gaze steady on the crowd. "Did you think betrayal wouldn't find you?" he sneered. The atmosphere crackled with tension, shadows lurking, and Sarah felt the weight of defeat crush down on her. Then, just as the tension fell heavy, a screeching siren filled the air. A flood of blue and red lights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the panic-stricken faces. Police cars swarmed outside. "Get down!" someone yelled as chaos escalated. Sarah ducked low, her heart a hammering rhythm, blood pounding in her ears. The urgency of the moment built, an electric current running through everyone. She blinked, disoriented, when out of the corner of her eye she saw the beggar, his expression twisted in anguish, locking eyes with the stranger. "No, you don't understand," he shouted, his voice rising above the noise. "You can't do this." The stranger's gaze flicked to him, surprise dancing in his features. But before anyone could react, a loud crash split the night air. A large metal object crashed through the ballroom entrance, scattering debris everywhere. All eyes turned to the source of the commotion. It was a clear bulk of steel, an armored vehicle, with a sleek design that felt out of place amid the chaos. The doors flung open, and figures in matching uniforms poured out, weapons drawn, operating like a well-oiled machine. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" A commanding voice boomed. The air thickened with fear, the tension almost palpable as everyone froze, hearts racing. What was happening? "Get back!" the stranger shouted, stepping backward, panic flickering across his face. Without warning, the beggar lunged forward. "Wait, please! I know what he did!" The crowd gasped. A stunned silence fell over them all, eyes widening as they turned toward the beggar, then back to Ethan. "What did you just say?" Sarah breathed, mind spinning. But before he could answer, the armored men rushed forward, grabbing the beggar and yanking him away. "This is your only chance to come clean, Ethan," one of the officers barked. In that moment, as confusion peaked, the beggar shouted, "It was never just about you. The real target is her." The room erupted in chaos again, but all Sarah could hear was the echo of his words. Target? Her? Was this all a game, and had she been the pawn all along? Ethan, caught off guard, faltered for a moment. A flash of something, was it panic or guilt, flickered across his face. Then, as if the universe had decided to break open the dam, the stranger grinned. "You think this is a choice, Ethan? Your time was always running out." "Stop!" Sarah shouted, both alarmed and furious. And in that chaos, the shadowy figure turned, catching Sarah's gaze. "You have no idea what you're part of, but you will." And just like that, the world flipped, the ground beneath her crumbling, the very fabric of her life ripping apart. What had she gotten into? Who was the beggar? And what did he really know? The walls felt like they were closing in, secrets threatening to consume them all, leaving everyone gasping for air, in the swirling storm of betrayal and revelation. As the sirens wailed, the crowd froze again, holding its breath. Sarah's heart raced, each beat counting the moments as the truth lingered tantalizingly close, yet still just out of reach. This was just the tip of the iceberg, and as the madness unfolded, one thing became clear. This was a game where the stakes were higher than she ever imagined. The room was thick with confusion, but the blinding flash momentarily stilled everything. Time hung like heavy mist, thick with unanswered questions. Then, without warning, the lights went out completely, plunging the ballroom into darkness. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. Fear clawed at Sarah's chest. What was happening? Could this night get any worse? Suddenly, another flash lit up the space, revealing stunned faces frozen in shock. But just as fast, the darkness returned. Dread settled like a stone in her stomach. Ethan, the beggar, even the shadowy stranger, they were all dancing on the edge of a cliff, and she was see. And then it happened. An explosion. Sarah stumbled backward, the blast hitting her like a punch, knocking the breath out of her lungs. Crystals from the chandelier rained down, sparkling like shattered dreams. Screams erupted, and the crowd surged in panic. Their once pristine outfits now dusted with ash. Unsteady, Sarah pushed herself up, her heart racing. The air thickened with a mix of smoke and fear. She coughed, struggling for control, trying to make sense of the chaos. Amidst the turmoil, the shadowy figure emerged again, stepping closer with a force that commanded attention. "Ethan," he said, voice low but clear, cutting through the noise. "You thought you'd escape me?" Ethan's bravado began to crack, panic flickering across his face. "What are you doing here?" His voice trembled just slightly. "Did you think betrayal wouldn't find you?" The stranger sneered, shadows dancing in his eyes. The crowd held its breath, fear mingling with intrigue. But before anyone could react, the beggar lunged forward, desperation in his voice. "You don't understand. There is more to this. We're all in danger." "Get behind me," Sarah shouted, instinctively stepping in front of Ethan, her heart racing with conflicting emotions. She felt the weight of betrayal and confusion, pressing down on her. Without warning, the room filled with a loud crash. The crowd jolted back, parting as a massive armored vehicle blasted through the ballroom entrance. Armed men swept in, weapons raised, voices commanding. "Freeze! Hands in the air!" "Is this a joke?" someone yelled in disbelief. Chaos erupted, people scrambling to escape. But amidst the panic, Sarah felt like she was in a surreal nightmare. Her world twisted, darkness swirling around her. Then from the shadows emerged a familiar face. Madison, her childhood friend, looking different but unmistakable. But what shocked Sarah most was the gun in her hand. "Sarah," Madison shouted, panic in her eyes. "We have to talk. He isn't who you think he is." "Madison, why are you here?" Sarah's heart raced. Was this part of the betrayal? The chaos around her faded as she focused on Madison, who seemed terrified and determined. The gun wavered in Madison's grip, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "I'm here to save you. It's Ethan. He's not who he appears to be." "What? What do you mean?" Sarah's voice shook. Then Ethan, eyes wide, glanced at Madison, and the fear on his face twisted into something darker. "You don't know what she's involved in, Sarah. She's playing both sides." The crowd gasped. Everyone turned their attention back to Madison, their fear palpable. "What the hell is going on?" someone yelled. The stranger grinned like a cat watching a mouse caught in a trap. "You think it's just about you three? This has always been bigger." "Bigger?" Sarah echoed, heart pounding. What did that mean? Then Madison spoke, voice trembling. "I never wanted this to happen. I thought I could protect you, but Ethan, he's..." Before she could finish, a loud bang echoed through the hall as the armored vehicle's door burst open, and a man stepped out. A figure from Sarah's past, one she had thought was gone forever. "Hello, Sarah," he said, voice smooth, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was her father, the man she believed was dead. The world around her spun. A wave of shock washed over the crowd. Sarah's breath hitched, a lump forming in her throat. How was he here? What did he mean to her? "Dad," she whispered, gripping the edge of the table. "This is where it all began, my dear," he said, eyes glinting with something darker, something she couldn't grasp. Panic surged through her. "What do you mean?" "Ethan has been playing the game I started. And now," his gaze turned deadly serious, "it's your turn to claim your inheritance." As the words sank in, the walls around Sarah shattered. Everything she thought she knew fractured, and she stood on the brink of a truth that could change everything. Would she accept her fate or fight against the storm brewing around her? The answer teetered on a knife's edge, waiting for her choice. As the words echoed through the chaos, Sarah staggered to process the truth her father had just unleashed. "Inheritance?" she gasped, shaking her head in disbelief. The crowd around her was frozen, all eyes glued to the unfolding drama, lips parted in shock. Her heart raced, thoughts colliding. What did he mean? Had her father been alive this whole time? What was Ethan's role in all of this? "Dad, is it true?" she forced out, the lump in her throat hazy with confusion and anger. "What have you done?" "It's not what you think," he said softly, yet there was an edge underneath. "I've been fighting to keep you safe." Ethan's face contorted. "Safe? You've manipulated her life entirely, all for your own twisted games." "Games?" Her father fixed Ethan with a deadly glare. "You were nothing but a means to an end. You played your part well until it all crumbled." The crowd gasped again, a wave of disbelief rippling through the room. Sarah's stomach twisted. What does that mean? She could feel panic rising, suffocating her like the smoke filling the air. And then, unexpectedly, a loud crash echoed from the entrance. Everyone turned, eyes wide. A figure burst through the shattered archway, a woman, wild-eyed and breathing heavily, her clothes torn and dirty. It was Annie, Sarah's older sister, thought to be lost for years. "Sarah!" she shouted, desperation in her voice. "You have to get out of here!" "Annie?" Sarah's voice faltered. "What are you doing here?" But Annie didn't answer. Instead, she lunged for their father, her gaze burning with a fierce intensity. "You shouldn't have come back! You put her in danger!" "What do you mean?" Sarah cried, her confusion deepening. "What is happening?" Annie grabbed Sarah's shoulders, panic flaring in her eyes. "It's not just your father you have to worry about." Before she could continue, the shadowy figure stepped forward, a smug smile overshadowing his expression. "Oh, but it gets better, doesn't it?" He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a low whisper. "You see, Sarah, your family isn't just complicated. You're tied to something much darker. The reason your sister disappeared?" The crowd held its breath. Sarah felt the floor shift beneath her. "What are you talking about? What happened to her?" The figure took a step closer. "You're more than you know, sweetheart. Your sister, your father, they are all players in a deadly game." A gunshot rang out, slicing through the tension like a knife. "Get down!" someone yelled, and chaos erupted anew as people scrambled for cover. Sarah ducked, heart pounding. She looked up to see a figure stagger back, Ethan, hand clasped to his arm, blood seeping between his fingers. "What have you done?" he hissed, eyes filled with rage. And then it hit her. Everything she believed was a lie. The truth cracked open like an egg, spilling secrets all over the ballroom floor. Ethan was part of it all. Those whispers of betrayal? They were real. Then, just as the guards closed in, Annie turned to Sarah, her face pale with determination. "You need to leave. Now. I'll hold them off." "Hold who off?" Sarah shouted, panic flooding her chest. "You can't—" "Just trust me, Sarah." Annie's voice broke, heart-wrenching. "You have to get out." Fear gripped Sarah. She had just found her sister. How could she leave? Is this the end? Or just the beginning? The stakes were sky high, and now every heartbeat felt like a countdown. The truth loomed, terrifying and beautiful, just out of reach. "Annie, wait!" she screamed, but it was too late. The chaos enveloped them, drowning her cries. Even amidst the shouting and fear, Sarah swore she saw something shift in her father's eyes. A flicker of regret? Or maybe a darker understanding of what was about to unfold. In that moment, everything hung in balance, a web of secrets tightening around them, suffocating and impossible to escape. Would she choose to follow her sister into the unknown, or confront the darkness that her family had created? As sirens blared outside, one thing was clear: the game of truth and betrayal had only just begun. The chaos erupted around Sarah, voices overlapping in panic. The weight of her sister's hand on her shoulders grounded her, but fear clawed at her. "You have to go now," Annie shouted, a fierce urgency lighting up her eyes. "No, I won't leave you," Sarah cried back, heart racing, pulse pounding loud in her ears. Annie's grip tightened, shaking her head. "Trust me, I'll hold them off." Annie's voice was raw, filled with desperation. In that frantic moment, Sarah glimpsed Ethan, staggered and bleeding, eyes wide with something that felt like genuine fear. "Sarah, please, it's not what you think." His voice sounded almost weak now, desperation creeping in, but her father's presence loomed larger than his plea. "Get down!" someone yelled. A loud bang shot through the air and instinct kicked in. Bodies fell to the ground, confusion mixed with the acrid smell of smoke and fear. Sarah ducked, heart hammering, watching chaos explode all around her. Annie was moving, lunging toward Ethan, her eyes fierce. "You have to answer, Ethan. What are you hiding?" She sounded almost wild, and in that moment, all Sarah felt was the need to protect her. "Enough!" the man in the shadows shouted, cutting through the noise. "You think this is about you? This is bigger than your petty squabbles." Just then, with a jarring crash, the ballroom doors swung open again. A wave of men in black uniforms surged in, like a dark cloud ready to snuff out the flame of chaos. They were armed, serious, marching forward with grim determination. Panic took hold of the crowd again. Sarah's pulse raced. "What now?" she thought, barely able to breathe. But then, from the back, a figure emerged, a woman with curly hair cascading down her shoulders. Face smudged with dirt, but unmistakable. "Mom?" Sarah's voice trembled as shock coursed through her. Her mother stood there, fear and fury etched across her features. "Sarah!" she shouted, her voice raw desperation cutting through the chaos. "Get away from him!" "What? Mom, please! You're here! You're really here!" But there was no time for reunion. A shot rang out, not in warning, but as a statement. It echoed, drowning out the screams, and the next moment, her mother collapsed to the ground. All of it stilled, as if time threw a blanket over chaos. Sarah felt time stretch, heart dropping into the pit of her stomach. "No, no!" she gasped, scrambling to her mother's side, knees hitting the ground, hands trembling. Blood pooled around her as Sarah cradled her mom in her arms. "What have you done?" Annie screamed, her face twisting with rage as she turned to Ethan. "You did this!" But then, the uniformed men stepped closer, glaring, eyes narrowing. Their stance radiated danger. Is she part of this too? Ethan stumbled backward, shaking his head, terror clouding his features. "I swear I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought this was over." "What did you do?" Sarah shouted, grief mixing with the rising tide of anger in her chest. "You," the shadowy figure spat, pointing at her father, his voice slicing through the air like glass. "You might have just sacrificed everything. Too late for regrets, Ethan." Her father's voice trembled, raw emotion spilling over, as everything began to shift. Then he stepped forward, eyes fixed on Sarah. "You're the consequence of our choices, Sarah, but you can still escape this." "Escape?" Sarah stared, realization hitting hard. This wasn't just about her relationships. It was a deep, twisted game of lies and betrayal, stretching back farther than she could fathom. "What do you mean?" Before the words could leave her lips, something flickered in her mother's eyes. "Sarah," she whispered, barely audible, "listen carefully. It's not about the past. You're marked." Marked? What did that even mean? Confusion crashed over her like waves, heavy and unforgiving. And then, in the blink of an eye, her mother gasped, holding on to Sarah tighter, pulling her closer just as another chaos burst broke through the room like a thunderclap. A flash of light erupted, blinding everyone. It felt like time stood still. When Sarah could see again, everything had changed. The figures in black, once threatening, appeared to be scrambling, confusion shifting through their ranks, their gaze now fixed behind her. "What the?" Sarah managed to turn around just as another figure emerged through the chaos of smoke and noise. A shadowy figure with familiar features, a soft smile creeping across their face. "Surprise!" whispered the figure, a devastating laugh echoing around them. The crowd gasped as Sarah's world came crashing down. Lucy, her best friend, the one she had thought lost forever in the fire, stood there like a ghost from the grave, but now she was more. "You had to trust me, Sarah. I never betrayed you." "Lucy? But you died." "She did it. Or was I just playing my part?" The smirk on Lucy's face twisted the knife in Sarah's heart. And just like that, everything around them shifted. Relationships torn apart, truths now intertwining like a deadly noose. Who could Sarah really trust? Was anyone really who they claimed to be? As emotions churned and the air crackled with danger, she found herself standing at the edge of an unknown abyss, the ground crumbling beneath her feet. As the smoke wove through the chaotic room, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each beat suffocating her with confusion and despair. Lucy, how? She felt time freeze, staring at her friend who should have been gone forever. What twisted game was this? "Surprise," Lucy said, but her smile felt like a knife in Sarah's heart. "I've been closer than you think." "No, this can't be real." Sarah's voice broke, her world spinning out of control. "You can't just show up after everything." Anguish twisted inside her. It didn't make sense. Around them, the crowd surged. People shouted, hands grasping for meaning in the chaos. Sarah turned to her sister, hungry for support. "Annie, what's happening?" Annie, eyes blazing with fierce determination, grabbed Sarah's hand. "We need to go, now!" She gestured toward the broken window, framed by the chaos. "But my mom!" Sarah's throat tightened at the sight of her wounded mother on the floor, struggling with consciousness. "I can't just leave her." "She's going to be okay. You have to trust me." A loud crash rang out again. The dark figure in charge had retreated for a moment, and the room felt alive with his absence. The men in black hovered like vultures, eyes scanning, waiting to pick apart the pieces. "Ethan." Sarah turned to him, desperate for clarity, when she saw the venom coursing in his eyes, twisted with rage. "What did you do?" His chest rose and fell sharply, caught between fight and flight. "You've ruined everything." "You think I wanted this?" he snapped, blood dripping from his hand, a chaotic symphony clashing around them. "I thought I could protect you." "By lying to me?" She was losing it, drowning in anger. Her heart kept racing, but a tiny flicker of bravery sparked. "No more lies, Ethan!" The masked men moved closer, weapons raised. The urgency locked everything in place, their world shrinking. "Sergeant, now!" one of them shouted. The sound echoed like thunder, rising tension squeezing the air. "Get away from my family!" Annie shouted, forcing her way to Sarah. Her defiance ignited a wave of hope in Sarah's heart. "Lucy!" Sarah called again, unwilling to believe. "Are you really with us?" The smirk fell from Lucy's lips for a heartbeat. "It's complicated, Sarah. No one is what they seem." "Enough!" The shadowy figure stormed in, steady and menacing, cutting through the noise. "The game is almost over. Choose your side." A shot rang out again. Like a streak of lightning, Sarah's world shattered. Lucy dropped, gasping, clutching her leg. "Get down!" Annie yelled. In that moment, Sarah felt a rage burn, fanning the flames of betrayal. Everything came flooding back. The love, the lies, the pain. She looked at Annie, feeling tears sting her eyes. "We're not running anymore." Gathering her strength, Sarah turned to Ethan. "This is your chance. Stand up. Fight with us." Ethan hesitated. "You don't know what's at stake." "Enough of that. We decide what happens next." The crowd felt alive, hope rising. With a sharp breath, they surged forward together. Sarah, Annie, and even Ethan. Strength blossomed in their unity. But as they fought, the darkness loomed, ready to push them apart, to tear at their bonds. Shadows danced, and fear dripped through the air. Sarah felt the heartbreak of betrayal, but knew they had a chance. The truth was close. Would they rise or fall? As the smoke cleared, Sarah placed a hand on her mother, bloodied but breathing. "Please, don't leave me," she whispered, eyes glistening. And then Lucy gripped Sarah's shoulder, gaze fierce with both fear and defiance. "Together, we can do this." Just then, the walls trembled. Shouts filled the room. A surge of hope flickered within the depths, daring them to face what was next. It was the moment to choose. Would they confront everything that had been hidden, or would they let fear dictate their lives? As they stood at that cliff's edge, hearts racing and breaths trembling, one thing resonated with undeniable truth. The fight had just begun. And in that moment of uncertainty, Sarah felt her pulse quicken with resolve. Would they walk into the light, or remain trapped in the shadows of their past? You need to decide now. And just like that, the moment pulled taut, waiting for a call to action. If you're still with me, if you see the path unfolding before us, you must subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others. Don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories, because your thoughts matter in this.